What would the world look like without technology, in detail? If we were to imagine a world without technology, it would be vastly different from the world we live in today. In this hypothetical scenario, we would not have access to the vast array of tools and devices that we currently rely on to perform everyday tasks, communicate with others, and access information. Here are some key ways in which the world might look different without technology. Communication. Without technology, communication would be vastly different. There would be no phones, computers, or internet to connect us to people across the world. Instead, we would rely on face-to-face communication, snail mail, and telegrams to stay in touch with loved ones or conduct business. Transportation. Transportation would be limited to walking, riding horses or other animals, or using primitive vehicles like wagons or carts. There would be no cars, airplanes, or trains to move people and goods quickly and efficiently. Healthcare. Healthcare would also be vastly different without technology. There would be no advanced medical equipment, such as X-rays or MRI machines, and no vaccines or antibiotics to fight disease. Medical treatment would rely on traditional remedies, herbal medicine, and home remedies. Entertainment. Entertainment options would be limited to what we could create with our own hands, such as playing instruments or putting on plays. There would be no movies, TV shows, or video games to entertain us. Agriculture. Agriculture would be a much more labor-intensive process without technology. Farmers would rely on manual labor, animals, and primitive tools to cultivate crops and raise livestock. Manufacturing. Manufacturing would also be vastly different without technology. There would be no factories or assembly lines, and everything would be made by hand. This would lead to much higher costs for goods, as everything would be more expensive to produce. Education. Education would also be vastly different without technology. There would be no computers or the internet, so students would rely on books and teachers for learning. Overall, a world without technology would be vastly different from the world we live in today. Communication, transportation, healthcare, entertainment, agriculture, manufacturing, and education would all be vastly different, and people would need to rely on traditional methods to accomplish everyday tasks. While this hypothetical scenario is unlikely to